We're back to normal, everybody. No more scary racing game reviews, no more Halloween-colored graphics, and most importantly, no more Jean-Luc. Until the next time he's on.
To ease your nerves and get you back into the regular routine, we've got an excellent episode planned for you with not a single scare in sight. In fact, our editorial this week is one of the most wholesome we've ever done. Stay tuned to hear from Bobby how Nintendo is using Labo in classrooms and the history of educational games.
Reviewer Logan Berg brings us his thoughts on Call of Cthulhu. That game may be a bit spooky, but nothing will compare to Forza Horizon 4.
And PlayStation analyst Will Strickland joins us to talk about the state of virtual reality gaming after Oculus founder Palmer Luckey's interesting comments on the industry.
Now that you know what's coming up, sit back and enjoy. I'm Bobby Egan.
I'm Kristen Lawrence, and we hope you enjoy your stay here on Pixel Peak. This week, we're starting off with some sales numbers, and they're as big as they get, literally. In a press release last week, Rockstar parent company Take-Two Interactive announced that in its opening weekend, Red Dead Redemption 2 grossed $725 million. Let's stop to think about that for a second. Earlier this year, Marvel's Avengers Infinity War broke the record for the highest grossing opening weekend for a movie with a $640 million weekend. Red Dead not only beat that, but completely eclipsed that number, bringing in an additional $85 million. This sent Take-Two's stock price skyrocketing by 11% since the Western's release. Rockstar isn't new to extreme levels of success though, as GTA 5 has made over $6 billion since its release, making it the highest grossing entertainment product of all time. Even with that in mind, Red Dead Redemption 2 nearly hitting $1 billion in its first 3 days is historically successful. Just as GTA 5 is the highest selling entertainment product of all time, Red Dead Redemption 2 now holds the record for the highest grossing opening weekend of any entertainment product ever.
Last week also saw the final Nintendo Direct for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which is due out on December 7th this year. The Direct was 40 minutes long and wrapped up the remainder of the information Masahiro Sakurai wanted to share with players before they got their hands on the game. After months of speculation and quote-unquote leaks, the final roster of 74 characters was made official, along with 6 additional characters, including Piranha Plant, will be coming to the game via DLC packs after release. Sakurai showed the final 2 fighters on the launch roster, Incineroar, the heel Pokémon, and Ken from Street Fighter, who is an Echo character of Ryu. The Direct also showed information regarding online play and announced that a LAN adapter will be coming to Switch that will allow the hybrid system to get onto the internet with a wired connection. A lot of the Direct was primarily housekeeping, showcasing options and things like integration with the Nintendo Online smartphone app, but the Smash creator did also show the new story mode. Adventure Mode, World of Light, is not exactly Subspace Emissary from Super Smash Bros. Brawl, but it has its own drama. Something has vaporized all of the Smash fighters' bodies and transformed them into spirits. The Direct didn't reveal too much information about it, but it's safe to say that it's up to the players to reunite everyone with their physical forms when Smash Ultimate launches next month.
For fans of the 2015 cult classic Undertale, last week had quite the surprise in store. On October 30th, the Undertale Twitter account tweeted a cryptic message reading, "Return here in 24 hours." Lo and behold, the next day, a spin-off of Undertale dropped for free on Mac and PC. The game is called Deltarune, an anagram of Undertale, and it's more of a demo than a full game. After its launch, the Undertale account tweeted, "But it is not complete yet. No, it is far from complete." Another tweet said that it will ask players questions at a later time, maybe suggesting that the game will be finished with player feedback in mind. A word of warning for those who play the game before its official completion though. Make sure not to run the uninstaller that comes with Deltarune. It might just take a few liberties and delete the entire directory the game is stored in, instead of just the game itself.
Back around episode 1 of Pixel Peak, Sony announced that a PlayStation Classic would be coming in December and showed 5 of the 20 games that would be bundled with the plug-and-play system. Last week, any speculation on the lineup was put to rest as the company finally revealed the full list. Included with the PlayStation 1 Classic are Grand Theft Auto, Metal Gear Solid, Rayman, Resident Evil Director's Cuts, Revelations, Persona, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, and 14 other classic games. The system is due out on December 3rd, and so for now, all we can do is wait and hope its controllers have longer wires than the NES Classics do.
One hassle that consumers have had to manage with increasing frequency since the turn of the millennium is digital rights management, or DRM for short. DRM is usually included in games and other technology to keep pirates and hackers offline and away from products. But in a huge decision for the right to repair movement, Motherboard reported last week that the Library of Congress and the U.S. Copyright Office put forth new rules. These will allow users and independent repair experts considerably more freedom to hack software to restore devices to working order. This allows people the liberty to fix things on their own or take them to repairers of their choice, instead of forcing them to do it the way the company that made the product demands. This decision is particularly large for anyone who uses Apple devices to game, as the company has previously included safeguards for this matter, like a kill switch in MacBook Pros that can break devices if taken to anyone but Apple for repair.
Virtual reality pioneer and Oculus founder Palmer Luckey turned heads this week when he said that VR gaming has a problem far more severe than the high cost of admission. Is Luckey right in critiquing an industry he kickstarted, quite literally? Has VR stay run out? For more, we head to our analysis. We're joined by our in-house PlayStation analyst and Pixel Peak producer, Will Strickland, today to talk about virtual reality gaming. Will, thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely.
So, what did Palmer Luckey say? I've heard that he recently made a statement about the status of virtual reality. And what did he say, and what do you think about it?
Yeah, so he made a pretty thorough blog post talking about the state of virtual reality gaming and the future of virtual reality gaming. Now, obviously, it's important that Palmer Luckey was the one saying this. He was the founder of the Oculus Rift, or Oculus as the company. And I would say that virtual reality in its current phase was started because of the Oculus Rift with this super popular Kickstarter. I believe at one point it was the most successful Kickstarter ever, and then it was eventually sold to Facebook. Facebook bought the company of Oculus. So really, when you look at things like the HTC Vive and PSVR, I credit that to the Oculus Rift. But what Palmer Luckey was saying was, regardless of the price, which is a common critique of VR gaming, that the price of admission, if you will, is pretty high. You either have to have a PS4 system and the VR headset, a PC that can operate a VR headset, and the VR headset. It gets pretty expensive. He's saying that even if everything was free, it would be not engaging. The problem is the engagement of the games, and it's not there. You look at things like Google Cardboard, where it's pseudo VR, where you open an app on your phone, you make a little VR headset with cardboard. He said those things are essentially free and people stop using it after a week. It's more of a gimmick. So he says even if everything was free, everyone would eventually stop using it within a couple weeks.
All right. So why do you believe there is a market for VR gaming?
VR gaming, I think there's absolutely a market for, because if you just look at the evolution of gaming, people want new things as time comes and goes. When you look at, we went from the arcade cabinet to the at-home consoles. I mean, you first had the pretty basic Pong systems, then you had Atari and the NES, and just kept on moving to the PS4 as we have it now. Then you had motion controls, which is really cemented with the Nintendo Wii. Obviously, you had the Xbox Kinect and PlayStation Move that tried to mimic it, but it just didn't really go anywhere. And now gamers want something else, and what they've settled on is VR. And there are arguments for VR being a compelling way to play games. Especially, it's super popular for scary games, horror games. I know we just had our Halloween special, but the idea of 360 being in a dark forest and you have headphones on and there's something creeping around you, it's super immersive. And I've experienced it personally, and it makes your heart race. It's very, very stressful. So I think it's just another element of immersion. I think a lot of gamers just want a game that they can just get sucked into and forget about everything else and just become part of the world. And VR gives them that opportunity, assuming the game is developed in a way that is really a genuine experience.
So you mentioned that the Oculus was one of the highest funded Kickstarters of all time, but I'm sure that there was some virtual reality before the Oculus, right?
Sure. There's arguments about what was the first VR. There was I guess you could call it an arcade cabinet almost in the 60s. That was, if you've ever been to like a 4D movie theater at a theme park where the seats move and it sprays you with water or something, it was kind of the first attempt at that. You would put your head in this arcade cabinet looking device, and it would move your seat around, it'd shock you and have smells and everything. So people argue that was the first case of virtual reality, but I would credit it to the Virtual Boy. I think that was the first real legitimate dive for a commercial and gaming company into virtual reality. As we know, that did not go too well. It sold less than 1 million units, and it was only on the market for 1 year. Only 19 games came out in Japan, only 14 in North America. So it was one of Nintendo's biggest failures. So I would credit that as the first real VR step for gaming. You've had some elements as time went on. You had 3D gaming, which is kind of related to VR. That was really heavy for Sony and the PlayStation. And now we're at the Oculus Rift, HTC Vive, and everything where we're at right now.
What's keeping VR games from being truly engaging, in your opinion? Luckey says it's more so how they operate now that's keeping them from...
A big critique is that it doesn't allow free range of motion. You had a game like Fallout 4 come out, re-released for VR. You could either control it with a traditional controller, or you could point and kind of have a limited amount where you could basically teleport. But in terms of 3D, open world, free range of motion, it's just not there yet. Insomniac claims that they found a way to achieve that with a VR game. We'll have to wait and see if that's legitimate. I'm skeptical, to be honest. But Insomniac is a reliable source, reliable developer, so we'll see where it goes. But in terms of freedom of motion, that's really where it lacks.
We'd like to thank Will once again for giving his thoughts on VR gaming. Now to learn about a different kind of gaming, I'd like to send it to Bobby for this week's editorial.
On October 23rd, Nintendo of America announced that it was partnering with the Institute of Play to bring Nintendo Labo to classrooms across the US. According to a press release, around 100 second, third, and fourth grade classrooms throughout the country will see Labo in school during the 2018 and 2019 school year. The company is planning to help teachers integrate their construction-based game into the curriculums, and currently has a plan for students to work in small groups on activities that will help teach them fundamentals of technology and design. Nintendo Labo's partnership is far from the first educational game initiative, but given the technology and the accessibility of Labo's creation kit, it may have the potential to transform classrooms in ways that other educational games weren't able to before now. Educational games have been around for just about as long as video games have, if not longer, if that makes sense. Turtle Academy's 1967 Logo programming, which taught people how to code in Logo, is often credited as being the first educational game, 18 years before the release of the Nintendo Entertainment System. Educational games really started to pick up in the early 80s when Oregon Trail was released. Oregon Trail was intended to teach kids about Manifest Destiny, but it missed its mark by a pretty wide margin. What it ended up being was a random number-generated survival game, but it still taught an entire generation how to plan ahead and deal with unexpected turns of events. Some students even learned how to type on a keyboard and navigate with a mouse thanks to Oregon Trail. The game was, and is, still wildly popular, with a new release coming out this year in the form of a handheld device sold at stores like Target and Walmart. As video games continued to increase in popularity, so did educational games. After Oregon Trail came games like 1983's Reader Rabbit, which gamified learning to read. Later in the decade, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego made its way from TV onto the video game scene, where players would use their knowledge of a particular subject to figure out, well, where in the world Carmen Sandiego was. Around this time, companies began to realize the value of creating educational games, and companies like Scholastic started pumping them out at an unprecedented rate. They adapted popular franchises like I Spy and the Magic School Bus and churned them out in a steady stream of educational shovelware. As time progressed, educational games lost some of the popularity that they saw in the late 20th century, but they never disappeared. In 2005, Nintendo released Brain Age on the DS, which used the system's dual screens to present different kinds of puzzles. Right on the game's front cover, a subtitle said, "Training your brain in minutes a day." In 2008, when Apple's App Store launched on iPhones, educational games finally found a way to fully permeate society once again. With the comparatively low development and publishing costs of the App Store, all sorts of half-made educational tools began popping up on iPhones, iPod Touches, and iPads. Now, educational games fill both the App Store and Google Play Store. Basically every show on Nick Jr. has a companion app on smart devices now that will use kids' favorite characters to help them learn how to add and subtract. Nintendo Labo is different though. It's not just a math or spelling game that uses familiar characters and colorful interfaces to encourage kids to learn. Labo creates a visceral experience that can help children truly understand more concepts. They can learn about simple machinery with the different kinds of pulley systems. It can teach kids how movement and speed work. The customizability and assembly required can help students learn about design. With the inclusion of Nintendo Labo's Toy-Con Garage, the possibilities only end when imagination runs dry. Even though this is Nintendo's first official classroom initiative with Labo, it's not the only time it's seen the inside of a classroom. In July, a middle school teacher in the UK began incorporating the kits into his curriculum to help stimulate creativity and keep kids engaged during class. The teacher, Chris McGivern, told British Telecommunications, "The magic of Nintendo Labo is matching a product with the opportunity to make, play, and discover in such an imaginative way. And the children's enthusiasm for the product is just the first step." Labo has the opportunity to usher in a new era of educational games, and this partnership with the Institute of Play is an excellent way for them to get started. Nintendo has shown a lot of interest in bringing in non-traditional gaming audiences since the arrival of the Wii in 2006, and helping kids have fun while learning gives them a chance to break out of their mold and really reach a new crowd. Thanks to writer Max Stein for that piece. We now move to Logan Berg for this week's review.
Oh, you thought you were free from the grasp of the Halloween spirit. How wrong you were. I'm Logan Berg, and I welcome you to the alien world of H.P. Lovecraft in Call of Cthulhu. Call of Cthulhu, the official video game, is an investigative horror game set in H.P. Lovecraft's occult mythos, a world of psychological trauma, forbidden knowledge, and alien terror on a cosmic scale. Developed by Cyanide and published by Focus Home Interactive, it launched on October 30th for the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. This nightmare is traversed by Detective Edward Pierce, a veteran of the First World War who scrapes by on dwindling cases, his alcoholism and night terrors keeping him afloat in a haze. This pitiful existence is interrupted when he takes a mysterious case involving a peculiar artist, a torch mansion, and the strange island of Darkwater off the coast of Boston. From your first step onto the docks of Darkwater, you know this town is not what it seems. Darkness and fog smother the island, mirroring the depressing stagnation of the town's community of poor fishermen, sketchy bootleggers, and things more sinister. Call of Cthulhu nails the atmosphere of Lovecraft, presenting a bleak world that's a thin veneer for a lurking madness. The graphics are by no means impressive, and animations during cutscenes can be stilted, but the art direction more than engaged me. A forlorn lighthouse amid wrecked whaling ships, a foreboding mansion, or a skeevy bar are just some locations where I felt the need to stop and take in the environment. Characters themselves seem to hold just as many mysteries. Every character I spoke to seemed suspicious, always obscuring the truth by omissions or outright lies. Dialogue is critical in a game about piecing together clues, and Call of Cthulhu takes the approach that you should be careful what you say. I feel as if most RPGs train players to exhaust every option before closing out a conversation. Not in this game. The wrong word can shut you off, and the right compliment can give you a brief clue. For example, I found a policeman being harassed by a superstitious fisherman. My first approach was to immediately bother him with questions, which he promptly shut down. But reloading my checkpoint, starting off with a jab at the fisherman, prompted him to give me some friendly advice. Choice was an evident cornerstone of Call of Cthulhu, reflected not just in dialogue, but your skills. Detective Pierce can be trained in eloquence, strength, investigation, psychology, spot hidden, medicine, and occultism. The latter two can only be boosted by finding in-game items. Throughout the game, you earn points to invest into these skills, boosting your chances of success by 5% each, with certain milestones opening extra dialogue options and allowing you to glean more from clues. These skill checks are definitely impactful. After failing a check to pick a lock, I was forced to provide a favor to someone for their assistance. And true to the central themes of Lovecraftian horror, knowledge is not always safe. Exposing yourself to the occult will train you in identifying the strange things you encounter, but just the same it will erode your fragile sanity, allowing you more dialogue choices but exposing you to what humans were never meant to fathom. But unthinkable horror does not stop Detective Pierce. The gameplay typically takes the form of wandering around, talking to the denizens of Darkwater, cross-referencing things you find out, and solving various puzzles. Most of the fun comes from conversations and exploring. If combing through a madman's book on mythology or uncovering fishy experiments aren't your speed, steer clear of this experience. Sure, there's a few bouts of action, somewhat annoying stealth, and even some late-game combat, but I found they actually detracted from the game. Lovecraft is all about indescribable horror beyond our comprehension, which makes adaptations beyond writing difficult. but Call of Cthulhu's focus away from action actually helps alleviate that issue. So for both veteran readers and newcomers to the world of Lovecraft, I'd give this game a strong recommendation. Sure, the story may be a bit typical for those familiar with Lovecraft's works, but it's a good dive into the murky waters of paranoia and madness. In creating a chilling atmosphere, capturing the sinister tone of Lovecraft, and in delivering an intriguing tale, Call of Cthulhu is a solid game.
That was the eldritch horror that is Call of Cthulhu. Do you dare choose to play it and open yourself to its forbidden knowledge? And now over to Bobby and Kristen.
And that's it, the end of our 7th episode.
We'll be hitting the old 1-0 in no time.
We'd love for all of you to stick with us each and every week. To know when new episodes air, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at PixelPeakAppTV across all our platforms.
Go ahead and subscribe to AppTV's YouTube channel, as well as visit its social media accounts like Facebook. All support is much appreciated.
Shoutouts to all our cast members, including writers Tanner Mazzell and Max Stein, reviewer Logan Berg, analyst and producer Will Strickland, and associate producer Kyle Presley.
Thank you all for watching, and we hope you enjoyed your stay on Pixel Peak.